Eric Van Orden was checking into his hotel when he first heard about the incident at the Trump rally preparing for the RNC, and he joins us now. This has certainly shocked America. So tell me what immediately went through your head when you first found out about this.
Well, let's clear something up. This wasn't an incident. This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump that just took place. Here's what's going through my head. This is shocking, but it's not surprising. The level of vitriol that the left has been putting out about this man for the last 8.5 years, it has finally crested. Joe Biden just said 5 days ago that it's time to put Donald Trump into the time to put the sights on Donald Trump. So we have to stop this sort of stuff. When the current president of the United States speaks so viciously about his primary political opponent, this is the type of thing that's going to happen. And unfortunately, it's been facilitated by the legacy media.
We have heard some reports that President Biden plans to pull ads at this time. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that President Biden right now is a ship adrift and the nation does not have a captain. And it doesn't really matter what President Biden does right now. He's led a disastrous administration that has been proven to make everybody's life in the United States much worse. It's clearly now dangerous for more people, and the world itself is a much dangerous place. We're closer to World War III than we have been in my entire lifetime. And we have a president of the United States that is incapable of making strategic decisions at, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I encourage President Biden to speak out vigorously, vociferously about political violence, but he also needs to measure his tones and talk to his people and tell them to get it in order. We are Americans first.
There are a lot of people who would say those same things about President Trump. We hear those complaints that both sides are using rhetoric that may bring violence. What do you say to that? Because this now says something about the political state in America when we have these types of things happening.
I would say that by orders of magnitude, the left has been much more vitriolic in their responses. Let's remember that a Bernie Sanders supporters shot up the Republican congressional team. Remember that? And the media played it down. That was a Bernie Sanders supporter. So I hope to God that no one would ever try to do anything against a sitting president, Joe Biden or not, right? We cannot do this sort of things. But when you see the Antifa violence that is taking place, the billions of dollars of violence that took place with Black Lives Matter, how they burnt down our cities across the United States of America, and no one was held accountable. You've got these anti-Semitic protests that are taking place on United States colleges and in Washington, D.C. No one's being held accountable. So the left, by far, orders of magnitude, has been much more guilty of doing anything even close to what the right has been doing. And that is a fact. And if the press starts reporting these things accurately and evenly, people's eyes will be open. They saw for the first time that Joe Biden is incapable of putting a sentence together. The first time. We've been saying this for years. So the media needs to do their part, and I really appreciate your station because you guys report evenly and actively, and I really appreciate that tremendously. But I wish your brothers and sisters in the other mainstream legacy media would do the same.
Oh, certainly. I want to comment on the work that others are doing, and I want to get to the RNC in just a moment. But certainly, any reasonable person does not want violence happening anywhere. I think it is fair, just only because we've spoken about several different incidents that have happened in the last decade, to also bring up January 6th, which would be Trump and Republicans, that would be behind.
Well, listen, political violence of any type is not welcome in the United States of America. And I condemned what happened on January 6th as it was taking place. I will have no part of political violence. I've spent my entire adult life either training people for combat, training for combat, or in combat myself. I'm a retired Navy SEAL senior chief. I spent 26 years doing that. But you cannot compare an assassination attempt on the leading opponent of a sitting president who has been pilloried for over 8.5 years to these other types of incidents. And I don't justify them in any way, shape, or form, but this has got to stop. And here's something else I want people to think about. Courage is contagious. I'm wearing a Make America Great hat again right now in downtown Milwaukee, about an hour after the former president of the United States was almost assassinated. And there's a reason for that. If you see the picture of Donald Trump holding his fist in the air with blood pouring down the side of his face, telling people to fight. It's time for that in the United States. We have to stand up for our values. We have to understand that we are American citizens first, and then we have family values, we have religious values, and way down at the end of that list should be your political party affiliation.
We know that all of this was happening so fast. You bring up the fact that Trump put up his fist and he said, fight.
That's right.
Immediately after this happened. What kind of message do you feel like that sends to those, especially if they were ardent supporters of Trump, and to see him in that state, to see him saying to fight and putting up his fist, what that may bring?
Hopefully it'll bring people out of the shadows. The silent majority of the people of the United States of America want peace, we want freedom, we want prosperity, we want security.
Are you concerned that the words fight, along with this, what is now being called an assassination attempt, may spur more violence?
No. The only violence that would be spurred is by the left. When President Trump was inaugurated, remember they were burning cars in downtown Washington, D.C., rioting and shattering windows, and the press covered up for that? Remember that? That happened. That was violence. No one was held accountable for that. This is what I want Americans to do. I want them to stand up and be courageous. I want them to stand up peacefully and make sure that people understand exactly where we are. We want freedom, we want prosperity, we want security for our children. We want to be able to fill up a gas tank and a grocery cart on the same day. We don't want tens of millions of illegal aliens coming into this country and literally raping and murdering our citizens. We don't want that. We want peace on a global scale. But it takes courage. You have to stand up. When people say, do you support President Trump's platform? So many people cower, and I know because they're my friends. They're afraid to say it because they get chastised at their workplace. They get chastised at the grocery store. Enough of that. I don't want them to actively physically fight anybody, but I want them to stand up for their values. Why should only the left be able to stand up for their values publicly? That time for that is over.
We know that stand up for values can mean very different things for people, sure, depending on where they are in life. And for someone, they felt they were standing for their values now, and that is not the direction that we would like to go. Yeah. So I think politicians in general may have to be sensitive in how they speak about these things. What I do want to ask you about is the Republican National Convention. Obviously, this is what is happening right now here. We're expecting President Trump right now to maybe still attend, but even if he does not attend, the concern changes now as far as safety here and what might happen despite all of the things that have been happening in preparation. Yeah. The Secret Service prepared for that rally, yet this still happened. So what do you say to people? We now have about 50,000 people headed to the city for this. What do you say to them if they're concerned about their safety? Are you concerned about your safety?
First and foremost, I want to make something absolutely crystal clear so there is zero ambiguity. I absolutely renounce all forms of political violence. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to be clear with the people that are going to be watching this, because the Democrat Party, once again, will try to use and twist every word I say to say that I'm calling for violence, and I am not, unequivocally. I'm not concerned about my personal security. I'm just not. My background lends itself to being a little more self-aware than most other people. The Secret Service, they will do a debrief and find out what happened. I'm personally responsible for protecting the first democratically elected prime minister in Iraq's history during the war. So I know how all these functions work, and I know that is a very professional organization. They'll do a deep dive. You got to figure that out later. How are they going to modify the security?
Right now?
Right now? Well, I've gotten a few alerts, but it'd be very unprofessional for me to discuss them publicly. So I have confidence in the Milwaukee Police. We just met a whole bunch of them here. They're great guys and gals. I have confidence in the Capitol Police. I have confidence in the Secret Service. So I'm looking forward to a great convention where we're going to unite as Republicans and move forward for safety, security, and prosperity for our children and our grandchildren.
All right, thank you so much, Representative.
Thanks for having me.
Eric Van Orden.